The human experience, with our flaws, our passions, our triggers, our inspirations, and our imprints. If we could see behind everyone's story, then perhaps what we would have is deep compassion. In this podcast, I get the chance to explore these stories from some truly fascinating people in some honest and heartwarming conversations. And best of all, I get to share these discussions with you. I'm Lael Stone, and this is Humans Being.
Welcome to Humans Being.
Everybody, it's lovely to have you here. So my humanness for this week is a little bit around actually the servitude of mothering, which is probably a very apt topic for my guest today. And I guess I was really thinking about this just the other day. My youngest, who's 17, is trying to get her hours driving at the moment. So everywhere we go, she's driving, or she just kind of is like, Mum, can you take me to do parking, or can we drive here? And, she's my third child, and the third one, I've had to teach to drive, which is a privilege and an honor, right? But I found myself in the car thinking, oh God, how many more months of this till she's 18, till she can get her license? And I'm like, okay, it's about 80 days or something. And I was watching myself in this frustration of like, I just can't wait for that to move on. I don't want to have to drive you places anymore. And, this could be quite relevant to the fact that I feel like I've reached a phase where I just don't really mother much anymore because my kids are big, and it's been 25 years of doing it. But I just watched myself move into that space of hurrying something along. And I thought, God, I know this space. I have been there before. I remember this when my kids were little, when they're in nappies, when, you still had to plug their car seats in, when you were giving them all the snacks all the time. And those places, I think, which is a bit of a mirror of sometimes when we're frustrated and not getting our needs met, we look towards how do we hurry our kids on some level. So I did in that moment catch it, and I paused and I just thought, you know what, soon we won't be sitting next to each other driving. And then interestingly, that night at dinner, my kids were there, and one of my other daughters who does drive, we were talking about music, and she said, Mum, I so miss sharing music with you because we don't drive in the car together anymore. And that's where we used to share music. And it was in that moment where I thought, oh, wow, we're so good at hurrying things along instead of sometimes just being with what is in that moment. So I wonder if any of you can resonate with that feeling, with that part of sometimes hurrying life along when we have children, whether they're little or whether they're big. And I think sometimes the invitation is, can we just be in that moment? So this is a beautiful segue into my next guest. I am so excited to have this woman here, and she is joined by her beautiful little bubba, who's probably going to make lots of little squeaky noises in the background. So if you're hearing lots of gorgeous little baby noises, that is beautiful Archie, who is here with the amazing Libby Trickett. Let me just do a quick little intro of Libby. Libby is a 7-time Olympic medalist with 4 gold medals who represented Australia at 3 consecutive Olympic Games. She's a former world record holder in the 100-metre freestyle and one of Australia's most decorated swimmers. She's a mum to 5 children, which is just extraordinary. I'm already just bowing down to you because you have 5 children. She's married to former swimmer Luke Trickett and is co-founder of Play On Media, which produces 2 podcasts, Sportish and Play On, helping teens stay in the game. She's also a mental health advocate and an author of the memoir Beneath the Surface. So welcome, Libby. Welcome, Archie.
Thank you so much. I just, listening to your introduction, all I could think was like, yes, oh my God, yes, that is exactly the phase that I'm in right now. It's like, and I think, sorry, I'm just diving straight into it.
I was going to ask you, do you relate to that? So let's
yes,
go. Yeah.
Big time, because that's something that I've been reflecting on so much. Because my oldest is 10 now, and I have everything between, 10 and 7 months. And it's so funny because you can see how quickly time goes. You can see, like, my oldest is 10. Like, I cannot believe 10 years has passed. And, I remember wishing her babiness away because I just wanted to get to the next phase.
Yes.
And I still feel that, with my 5th child, even though I'm so aware of how quickly it goes, there's still these moments where it's so excruciating and uncomfortable. And to be honest, completely honest, like, it's so boring at times because it's so repetitive and it's just the same thing day in and day out, and you're so tired. And it's fairly relentless. And I'm having to actively remind myself every day, every single day, that this is going to be gone in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And all of the last firsts that we're experiencing are really precious. And to try and honor that and take those moments to acknowledge it.
Yeah, I hear you deeply. There's a part of me that wishes I could go back in time to when my kids were like 2 or 3, just for a day, just to squish their little bodies, to smell them, to giggle and laugh. I'm sure after the end of the day, I'll be like, "Oof, that's exhausting."
That is enough now.
now. But there is that I'm watching this yearning in me. I look at photos of when my kids are little, I'll just be like, wow. At the time, it felt so big and so relentless. And I really love that you said, and boring, because I remember through many, many of those long days of parenting with just the invisibility of motherhood, feeling really lost all the time, and sometimes just feeling like this is never going to end, this relentlessness of what this is, this job of mothering. And I remember thinking clearly, you know what, if I can master this or bring some awareness to this or consciousness to this job, I could nail anything. I remember really thinking about that. If I can stay calm when the house is a pigsty and 3 kids need me for something and still find my center, I'm like, nothing is going to rock me. I used to look at it like a training ground. This is like learning how to be so anchored amongst a storm, when your house is complete chaos and all of that's going on.
Yes. I mean, that is, yes. It's so interesting that you're communicating that, because I feel the exact same way. I feel like this is a real, and probably as I have through all of my children, like all through those early years of them, you feel like there's a capacity that you get and a growth that you get because it gets harder, but also easier, because you're getting more centered and you're more calm through the shit show. Well, sorry if I'm not allowed to swear on your podcast, but
you can
like it's absolutely it's something that I'm really consciously having to do, because with 5 bodies, 5 children, in the house, everything gets squished in a lot of ways, and you kind of really have to try and consciously create that space in your brain and that centeredness with no time. There's no time. I can't have a half a day off to go and just meditate, although that would be bloody delightful, and I can't wait till there is a phase in my life again where I get to do that sort of thing. But you're right. There's that real discomfort of not entirely having your needs met, being calm and accepting that this is that chapter and that phase of life. It's a season and it's not going to be forever, but trying to fill your cup as best as you can so you can show up in the way that you want to as a parent.
Yeah. It's so extra. I just look at women often, or stay-at-home parents, and I just think, we are extraordinary. We are a next level breed, right? Because like even right now, we had this interview and you're like, you get on, you're like, I'm sorry, I have the baby. And I'm like, oh, of any podcast, this is the perfect one, because, I love babies. Children are just, I just feel like, so much of my work is speaking for children. But also I just kind of go, that just sums up motherhood, is so often we have plans, we do stuff, and then a child's sick or someone forgets something or babysitter cancels. And this extraordinary adaptability that we have to be able to roll with whatever is happening. And I think, this is the training ground, isn't it? Motherhood is often the training ground for these extraordinary skills where we learn to pivot and adapt and to just roll with what is. And you can still, you feel disappointed at times, but you're like, okay, this is where it is, and you keep on going. And, I know that can tip over into resentment. So I absolutely know there's an edge where that gets to. But what it does is it highlights to me just how extraordinary actually mothers often are, because of the amount of balls they have in the air, but also, what we have to roll with.
Yeah, I love that, because it's so true. Like, what I have, I feel like what I've been navigating, particularly the last probably year, because my husband works away as well. So navigating pregnancy and 4 children, and then 4 kids plus a newborn while my husband works away. You have to be entirely adaptable, and almost inevitably there is something that draws your attention away from what you might want to do. And I've been saying that often to my husband recently, because I have work that I want to do and I have things that I'm really passionate about outside of mothering, although I would consider myself a stay-at-home mother. That is my primary right now. And it's something that I take very, very seriously. I want to do a great job at. And not in a way that I'm like a perfectionist, because if you look at my house, Lael, it's not a perfectionist house. But just in the way that I find that is the most meaningful. I think it'll be the most meaningful contribution to our world that I can give, is to raise good humans. But, having said that, I'm also a person, and I was a person before I had kids, and I have passions and dreams and goals and aspirations, and that doesn't stop when you become a mother. I think when you find the thing that you want to do in this world outside of mothering, it's almost more passionate, because you feel really strongly about whatever work you are doing, because it does take time away from your family, and you're very conscious of that. But it is, that adaptability piece is, I was not adaptable when I was a swimmer. I was like, I have to control, and it needs to be perfect, and it needs to come in exactly the right way. And if something went wrong, then I was entirely inflexible. And the kind of, I guess I work a lot with quotes, because I love like little reminders. And the one that is kind of sticking with me a lot at the moment is bend, don't break.
Yeah.
Because I think so often we're holding on so tightly, and we want to control everything. We want to control the outcome. But actually, we have to roll with it, and we have to be flexible. We have to bend. Otherwise, we'll all have minty bees and fall in a heap.
I think it's such a beautiful point you bring up there, because I know in my work, and I've worked with a lot of mothers, and perfectionism is something that turns up for a lot of people, which, is really connected to that control. If I can control this, then I'll be okay. And of course, that control only comes from a place of protection usually, because, if we've had a story where if we're not in control, it doesn't go the way we want, then what's going to happen? And that's unsafe, and all those kind of things can go on. So there's there's never any judgment around how we're turning up in it. But I think, that piece of, we cannot get parenting right, and we definitely can't get mothering right. And it took me a long time to realize that, actually, in my mothering story, to get to a point where I remember just simplifying it to, my job is to turn up and be as spacious as I can be, which just means keep my center, so that if a child walks into the room and they're angry or upset, I can lean into them. And if someone needs to play, I can do that. Or I'm just attuned enough to see what's going on. And there's going to be days where it's completely messy, and we're all going to eat fairy bread for dinner on the floor. And that's it. That's all we can do. And some days, back in my day, we didn't have screens, but the TV was on. And if you're watching another episode of Bob the Builder, knock yourself out, because the capacity today is low. And I think we have to give ourselves permission to be human in that, because we're not meant to parent on our own at home with all these kids by ourselves. It's just not meant to be that way. And then we set these ridiculous expectations for ourselves when we don't feel like we're living up to it. And I think it's really big that we actually have to put down that mantle of, this is what it's got to look like. And some seasons of our lives are, we're just getting through, and that's it. And some are just, this is the best we can do. And I love what you said, and then on top of that, we also have our purpose and our passion of who we are outside of being a mother, but who we are as women, perhaps, or fathers, if this applies to you, that also needs a space and a place to lean into. And, I think over all these years, I've really learned too that some seasons are going to be about servitude and about just wiping bottoms and making another snack plate and driving your kids to sport. And then there's other times where there'll be more space to do it and to find it. And I think, for me, I guess I've really learnt patience sometimes. I remember just saying to myself when my kids are little, my time will come. It's going to happen. I just, for now, this is the season I'm in, and can I be present within that? Yeah, I think when you're a passionate person and you like to create things, that's hard sometimes. There's a real juggle that goes on.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It is that constant reminder and constant acceptance. Like, it's not like, for me, I don't think I would be alone in this, but you constantly have to remind yourself that this is this period of time, and it won't be forever. I remember going through postnatal depression after the birth of my first daughter, Poppy, and, was going through extraordinary sleep deprivation. And the overwhelming feeling was, this will never stop. And it felt like the only way I can describe it is feeling excruciating. Like, it was so powerfully uncomfortable. And, eventually she sleeps, and eventually you kind of move through that darkness and that phase through lots of work and, work with the psychologist and seeing a GP and making those connections. And then she starts to sleep and then you start to sleep. And so it slowly kind of lifts. But when you're in it, it just feels so relentless. So I think one of the things I'm most grateful for through that experience, as awful, like it was awful that period of time. But the thing that I'm so, so grateful for is that I learned that it passes. Even the most, darkest moments in that time, it does eventually go. And so, when I'm getting stroppy that the babysitter cancelled and I have to have the baby while talking to you, which I was so, looking forward to just doing one-on-one, not have to, bounce constantly while talking to you. You do learn to be adaptable, and you learn that eventually it'll either work out or it doesn't. And that I now have that capacity, and this is something I'm really, really proud of, is that I have that capacity now to roll with it and as you said, show up as the best version of myself. And, that is not always pretty. Sometimes it's, I am getting angry at the kids because they're not listening, and, I have all of the same issues that everyone experiences. No, they don't listen. They're extraordinarily untidy. They're constantly wanting to watch Mako Mermaids or whatever it is at the time, K-pop Demon Hunters it was not so long ago. And yeah, you're having to navigate not only big things with, the 10-year-old who's going through friendship stuff, and, you want to have that space and that time and ability to talk her through that. But, the baby's just shat himself. He needs to be changed completely. So there's that whole spectrum of things, and to have that, I guess that space and ability to draw on is something that I really, I continue to find, I guess. And you have to continuously remind yourself that it's not forever. And then one day I'll be complaining about having to take Archie for his license and, doing driving hours, and I'll be like, and I'll completely forget about this moment in time.
Yeah, it's so big and real when you're in it. And a big shout out to all the mums who are in that space right now. Like, I really just have so much love and compassion for those places that we stand in, especially because mothering is quite invisible in our culture, and we're not acknowledged for the job we do. We're not recognized for, the times you didn't lose your cool, or you played Lego for another hour, or just, it's such a huge a thing in our culture where we don't often, I feel, really recognize the roles that we play within it. And especially on those really, really tricky days, I remember saying to my husband at some point when he would go to work all day, I'm like, I need you to come home and acknowledge just that I kept the kids alive.
Yes. Yes.
Please
acknowledge what I've done.
Yes, please acknowledge that the house isn't too trashed today, and I managed to do a lot of washing, and that, I laughed and played with the kids, and this invisible work feels really big, and it's hard, and I think I really, until I learned to really validate it in myself, I often was looking for that, from him, which sometimes didn't come because he was like, but I'm trying to earn all the money, and, we play the who's doing it tougher game, which nobody wins at. But it was why I would often, and I think what a lot of women do is they go and find other mothers, or they hang out, or they join a mother's group, because you're all like, yeah, we get what this is. I mean, it's not to say, there's pressure and stress, wherever you stand, whether you're the working parent, whether you're a stay-at-home parent, it's big work no matter where we are. But I think, that there's certain elements that really sit with what that feels like when we are in that servitude place is huge. I'd love to ask you, you mentioned about having postnatal depression with Poppy. And, I find that sometimes when we reach those breaking points on some level where we're not coping, it usually points us towards things that we're not looking at and things that we need to shift and change. What did that moment for you open up in what you needed for yourself?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I think for me, that was the real crack that opened of the perfectionism in me. And, my house is definitely not perfect anymore. And I would gladly call myself a recovering perfectionist. But at that time, I desperately wanted to control everything. And, the reality of having a baby, as soon as you try to get pregnant, the journey is completely unexpected, whether you deal with, fertility issues, which, thankfully, we had one miscarriage, our first pregnancy. But otherwise we were pretty lucky in terms of falling pregnant. But, pregnancy for me every single time was awful. I felt terrible. I, felt entirely out of control of my body, because coming from being an elite athlete where all I did was control my body, and what I was able to put into it and what I was able to get out of it, that was really confronting. And then I ended up getting high blood pressure with all 5 pregnancies as well. So there was lots of things that kind of start to chip away at this idea of who you are and perhaps what sort of mother you're going to be. And, I had these grand plans of hypnobirthing my babies out into water and, opening my cervix like a flower. And, I still get sad at times that I didn't have that opportunity. Like, I would have loved that, I think, as a physical challenge and experience. And that wasn't what happened for me with any of my pregnancies, with any of my births. Doesn't mean that they weren't beautiful and meaningful and, ultimately to get all of us earthside and well and healthy was the main thing. But at the time, that really starts to chip away at this idea of what you are. And then, I had Poppy, who was, I can only describe her as a cranky baby, but she just seemed cranky all of the time. She didn't really sleep. For about 4 months, she was probably sleeping pretty well. And I started to get a bit smug, and I was like, how good am I at, my baby sleeping? I was like, what is everyone complaining about? Like, it's just so easy. And then I think the universe went, this girl needs a little hit upside the head. She needs to learn what's what. And then Poppy just stopped sleeping. So for a period of about 5 months, she was waking every 45 minutes, either through the day and at night. So yeah, you go through this extraordinary sleep deprivation, which is just in your soul. Like, you can't make decisions. Everything becomes difficult and challenging. And I just felt like I was failing entirely. And it's such a funny feeling, because the only I'm used to being coached. Like, I pride myself on being really coachable. I think that's a really important thing, to be able to receive feedback and kind of take it on and then apply it. And the only feedback I was getting was from this tiny little human who was just screaming at me and not sleeping. So it just felt like I was being kind of crushed into the ground in a lot of ways. And I think through that pressure and through that crack, I guess, that opened through that phase, it just made me realize that I don't get to control this, which still feels really frustrating at times. And I still have to catch myself. But I think that was a really, really, other than knowing that, the old saying, this too shall pass, it's knowing that I cannot control what this little human will be. That's not my job here. My job here is to be that space for her, to be available and to give as much as I can, but also to communicate, to talk to her about life and experiences, and not projecting my experiences onto her, but also talking about my experiences and sharing that with her. And yeah, I guess walking alongside her is what I kind of imagine to be able to do. And that's what I hope to do for all of my children. But yeah, I think that moment definitely showed me how little control that I have, but also what is available to me to be the best version of a parent that I can be.
Yeah, it's so beautiful the way that you talk about that, Libby, because I think we have those crisis points in our lives, don't we? Whether it's, I don't know, we get fired from a job, or someone we love dies, or we get sick, or we become a parent. And we have those moments where I think the rug is pulled out from under us, and we have a choice about whether we crumble and we just, it's not fair, or we actually have to turn towards what needs to change, whether that's my thinking, whether that's what is surrounding me. It's a really big thing. And I think sometimes they are incredible gifts. Like that, it's not nice. You wouldn't wish it upon anyone, but they're extraordinary gifts, aren't they, in helping us grow into who we are?
Yeah.
I think they ultimately are like, this is who you are as a human, and we're going to show you that. And the way that we're going to get your attention is by doing this.
No, totally. And, it's not just through parenthood that I've had that experience. I mean, certainly, as I said, I feel like through every child, I've had those cracks, like different cracks open and different lessons that I needed to learn. But like, I think with, going back all the way to swimming, all I wanted was to, this sounds really lame now that I say it out loud, but like all I wanted was to win the 100 meters freestyle in 2008 at the Beijing Games, right? And I didn't get that. I felt agonizingly short, 0.04 of a second I got silver by, which is nothing, right? And at the time, my entire world fell apart, that I just felt like I was a complete failure of a human, which again feels really dumb to say at 40 when you realize that you're actually second best in the world. And all things considered, taking your whole life into perspective and all of your experiences and your entire childhood and all of that sort of stuff, what I was able to achieve in that moment was, I think, nothing short of spectacular for me. But at the time, it was just this idea that I just had failed. Now I have no doubt in my mind that experience shaped who I was to the most important lesson that I learned, which was that that's not the thing that is going to make me whole. I spent so much of my life trying to prove my worth through my performances and, show my value to my family or whoever it was that I was trying to desperately to get love from, and that external validation. And what I realized, very slowly over many, many years, and, even to now, what it was that 18 years later, I realized that is not what makes me a good human. That's not what makes me of value. That's not what makes me a whole person. It was something that I was really fortunate to do. I'm so grateful that I found something that I loved and was passionate about and, good enough at to be able to represent my country, but that's not the thing that's important. And that lesson is just something that I've carried with me for my whole life. And I'm so, so grateful for that.
It's a powerful lesson to learn at 22, isn't it? Or when you're young, to actually realize that this isn't what I think it is. And I think that's what we're taught, or we're told. The narrative in our culture is, if you look a certain way, if your body's, hot, or you make $1 million, or you get this degree, or you're the best in the world, then you will be enough. Yet,
yes, that's the thing that we're seeking. And it's just not the case.
It's not
so
it,
true.
isn't it? Because people who achieve that often are like, oh, the feeling might feel euphoric for a little bit, but then that emptiness is often still there, because what we're trying to do is fill a hole that only we can fill within ourselves. And it's so big, isn't it? Because it goes back to those, in my words, those imprints and stories that we take on board as children, that we believe around our enoughness. We believe that, is who we are in the world and what we're validated from. And it's, it's documented in many, many places, isn't it, for people who are elite at something or the best in the world, that it comes often that drive from a place of needing that external validation, needing the love, all that kind of stuff. For you, if you felt comfortable sharing, where do you feel like that came from in you, that desire to be the best or that desire to win? Like, if you go back to the core, where did that stem from?
Yeah, this is where I was hoping we were going to go with these conversations, because reading your book at the moment and talking about imprints, I'm so grateful that you're sharing your work, because I just think it is of such value for so many people. And certainly, I think for me, helps me put language around some of those experiences for me. And I think during my childhood, like so many people, my parents divorced when I was young. But honestly, my dad probably went physically, emotionally missing when I was about 7, I would say. So for most of my life was not present. And before the age of 7, I don't really remember him being there anyway. So I think the old daddy wound was very real for me, and that sense of abandonment. I would see him probably once or twice a year from the age of 10. And then the only way we really connected at all during that period of time was talking about swimming. And he would try and give me some advice around going into the cave of pain, around training. And that was really all that he talked about with me. So I think unconsciously, definitely for me, I felt like maybe if I achieved something, then he might love me or he might come back into my life. And what I realized through all of that experience was obviously that wasn't the case, and that that was never going to create a strong, healthy relationship. But I think probably just over the last few years as well, I've realized how probably missing my mum was as well during that time. And I think that's the lessons that I've been learning with having more kids, is how, I guess, unavailable emotionally she was. And, that can create some resentment, and it has created some resentment and anger at times, I think, with my mum. But I think now I'm at a stage where I've forgiven that, because I know her story and I know where that's come from her experiences. And I don't think that she's been able to navigate that. I think she's trying really hard now, and that's really beautiful to see. And I think slowly we're going to create, I hope, a version of the relationship that I would really like to have with her. But I think it's been a confronting kind of 10 years in terms of understanding how emotionally neglected we were as kids for a really long time. But it's also that generation as well. They really didn't talk about things. They didn't talk about their experiences. They were really bad at getting help, which taught me a lot of bad habits as well. Like, my mum didn't ask for help at all, even though she was a single parent of 4 children, living away from her family. So, that taught me a lot of bad habits for sure. But I think that combination of kind of abandonment from my dad and that kind of emotional unavailability from my mum really drove that sense that I wanted to be seen. I just wanted to be, like, look at me over here. I'm of value. I'm good. I'm a good girl. Look how good I'm doing. Look at what I'm achieving. And again, what you realize over time and through those experiences is that unless you are feeling whole, none of those achievements are actually going to be the thing that fills that void that you're trying to fill up. And it was interesting, at the same time when when I got silver in the 100 freestyle, that was a couple of days after I actually won a gold medal in the 100 meters butterfly. And it's that moment, right, where you're like, I've achieved the thing. Like, I've done the thing that I've been working, to that point my whole life for, or at least the last, 10 years of my life, that I kind of dreamt about and thought about. And I was like, if I win a gold medal, then I'm going to be a whole human. Like, it's like you had these ideas and these images in your mind of like the world opening up and like a rainbow, and there's like this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And it's so funny because, I touched the wall, I turned around, I saw the number 1 next to my name, and the very first emotion was not joy or elation or euphoria. It was pure relief. It's like, oh, thank God I did it. I did the thing. And then you wait for that elation. You wait for that feeling that you're enough now. You wait for it so much, and then it doesn't come, and you're like, oh shit. Oh, I have to win another one, and then I'll be enough. I have to win another one and another one. And it's just that real sense of never enough. It's not enoughness. And unless you find that within you and you heal all of those wounds that you've kind of had experience and created through your childhood and through, just life, it'll never feel like enough.
Your sharing is so beautiful. I have tears in my eyes because I just feel I know and feel that power of we're seeking something and this might be it.
Yeah.
And then when it isn't, perhaps, or then the pressure we put on ourselves, but then the beauty and the magic of the realization that actually it's within,
Yes.
and that's
I was always enough.
Yeah, of course you were. You were born
I
enough.
was always enough.
That's exactly it. I say to people all the time, we are born enough. Nobody holds their beautiful baby in their arms when they're first born and looks at them and thinks, I don't think they're enough. Like we all look at them like you are pure light, right? And we are born that way, yet society, our family, we have these other messages that tell us something different. And yet I so believe, after listening to thousands of people's stories, that big core wound is enoughness.
Yes.
And the coming home to ourselves to go, you actually don't need to look a certain way. You don't need to earn an amount of money. You do not have to be the best. It's it's almost like accepting our beautiful, imperfect normalness that is actually allows us to come home to being enough in who we are. I mean, and I think mothering kind of does that to us, doesn't it, on some level, because it's like, you're the servant on some level for this.
Yes.
And society doesn't recognize that. I mean, that to me is where I really began to learn it in my own journey of, actually, can I bring deep presence to what I'm doing here? Because if I can do that, then that is a gift to my children. Can I see them in their enoughness? And I'm healing these big patterns, not only within me, but within them. That is the golden work, right? And it's invisible because nobody ever really sees it. But
and you don't know, you don't know what the outcome's going to be. Like, my husband and I joke about it all the time. Like, our kids could turn out to be assholes. I really hope not, right? Like, my whole goal in this world is to create really good, decent, kind, funny humans who don't take themselves too seriously.
Yes.
Who, can achieve whatever they want or don't want, they can contribute how they want to the world. But at the end of the day, I don't know how they're going to turn out.
Which is
We
the
don't
ultimate,
know.
isn't it? You don't. And I think, I don't know, being just
Which is scary.
It is scary. It is scary. But being a bit further down the road, I have really come to this, and I think my deep desire was always, I just want my children to be the full expression of themselves. I want them to be
Yes.
them. I just want
Correct.
them to be deeply connected to who they are and knowing their enoughness. And if I've
Yes.
done that, then we've done a great job. And I do see that in my adult kids. I see how comfortable they are in their skin, being who they are, following their own unique path, which is different, to each one of them is completely different. And yes, they're still going to have crap, right? Because we all will have stuff, right? You can do
Yes.
the best things that you think are like, right, I'm doing excellent parenting here. And then, when Poppy's 17, she'll turn around and go, Mum, I can't believe you did that. And you're like, what? That was good quality
I
parenting.
thought I was nailing it.
They're going to have stuff no matter what, right?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
our job is just to give them the skills and the tools to be able to navigate it. And I think, just coming back to your parents for a second, I think when people start to do this big work of realizing where they've come from, that whole stuff around enoughness, our worth, it's very easy to make our parents wrong. Yet I love that you mentioned you could see your mum, single mum of 4 kids, doing the best she could at that time, whereas you said, support wasn't necessarily there. We just don't talk about it. We push it under the rug. It gives us a whole other understanding and compassion for the place they've stood in. And I think that is a big part of the healing, isn't it?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's funny because I think I've definitely had moments over the past couple of years of definitely that anger and resentment because I've needed support at different moments and she wasn't available to me. And I think I've realized that was probably true for a lot of my childhood as well. But again, as as we've said, there's no real purpose to that resentment. And I heard a beautiful saying where kind of resentment is you drink the poison and expect the other person to die. And it's like, it's only poisoning us.
Yeah.
And it was only, and I certainly felt that with my dad. I have no relationship with my dad. And that's been the case for probably over a decade now. And, I still have twinges here and there because I see what an incredible father my husband is. And I get jealous of that for sure from time to time. And I'm trying to give myself grace about that because I think, probably I shouldn't feel jealous about that. But also I think it's completely understandable because I didn't have a present, engaged father who was willing to work on himself because, he's got all of his own baggage and imprints and childhood experiences that he has to work through as well. But he is so willing to grow and evolve. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so jealous of my kids that they have it, but I'm so grateful that they do as well.
Yeah.
But it's that big work that I think our generation is kind of doing to unpick all of those things to hopefully allow the next generation to really, I love the way you described it, be the fullest version of themselves. I just think that is so beautiful.
And you're so right. I think when we look at our parents, our grandparents, they didn't have the resources, the support, the internet, all the things that could actually give them what they needed to do this work. And I really agree with you. I think this generation of parents are the ones that are kind of rolling up their sleeves going, all right, I want to change this. I don't want to carry these stories forward. I'm ready to look at this stuff. And it's complex because, we can have compassion and understanding for our parents and why they did what they did. And we can also feel so freaking angry and pissed off and need to process that, like it's big, beautiful work, but I really honor and I love how much you lean into this, Libby, because the work that you do now is the work your kids don't have to, right? It's like you're not placing that then on their shoulders. You're like, I'm aware of my stories and patterns. I'm going to work with this. I am being as curious as I can around it. It then gives our children the space to be who they need to be. That's what's so powerful. That's
and
the beauty of it.
I think that's the best gift we can give to the world, you know, whether we have kids or not. I think breaking those patterns of thinking and behaving, and then you're able to show up in the world differently, and then that transforms all of your relationships. And you realize that you don't have to be perfect. Like, you don't have to have that pressure of being perfect, but also equally as importantly, you don't place pressure on the other person to be perfect either.
Yeah.
And you give them grace and compassion, and you can see them as they are and not require anything for them to be different.
Yeah.
And to have a solid relationship with them.
Yeah, so that's so beautiful. When we were talking about imprints, you know, I often talk about imprints that we carry from our family that we don't really want to carry. But then there's also some beautiful imprints that have shaped and guided us. Is there anything that comes to mind for you that are, you know, one or two imprints that you feel have been beautiful things that have shaped who you are or helped, you know, you to be in the world?
Yeah, it's interesting because I do feel like sometimes I focus too much on the negative ones because I guess that's kind of when I'm navigating life, they're the things that kind of come up, right? Because they're the things that you react to. But I think reflecting now, so I come from a pretty big family on my mother's side. So my mum is one of 8. I have 19 cousins. And I think maybe unconsciously that probably led me to have 5 kids. I really loved having lots of different people to kind of play with and have adventures with. Also spending as much time in nature as I possibly can, I think definitely comes from going, my mum's family are from Ingham in North Queensland, and we have cane farms in the family. So we'd go to my grandparents' place, and, you know, there was just so much space to be in nature and explore and kind of have time by myself. Exploring nature as well was something that I've found really joyful. And I think that it is infused in everything that I do, you know, particularly with my kids. We try and get out amongst nature as much as possible, and, you know, to create those opportunities, because you have to create it in today's society, that opportunity for space and for boredom and for creative play, particularly for kids. Like, their attention is just taken from them at all times, right? So really being intentional about creating that space and opportunity for them to go on adventures and, you know, create that resilience and that grit. And yeah, I feel like that's really been a positive, hugely positive thing for my experience, and certainly something that I try and do in everything as a parent now.
I love that, because that was going to be my next question. If I was to talk to your kids in 20 years' time and I was to say to them, you know, what are the imprints that you feel you took on from mum and dad that were great? Well, like, what would you hope that they would say?
They're super intense people. No, I think I would hope that I really hope the thing that we give to them is just a sense of being enough.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. But I hope in everything that Luke and I do, we're able to show them that they are enough as they are. Like, they don't have to prove anything to us.
Yeah.
They don't have to achieve anything for us to love them exactly as they are. I really hope that that's the main thing. But outside of that, I hope that we teach them how to have adventures, and we teach them how to laugh at themselves, because I just think the world is so incredibly funny when you don't take yourself too seriously.
So true. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think they're probably the main things. But yeah, certainly that sense of love and connection with us and enoughness.
That's so beautiful, which it already is. You know, I just go, the fact that you're talking about it, the fact that you're aware of it, we're already shifting the patterns and the stories for it to be different. It's so powerful. Before we kind of finish off, I'd love to just touch on your advocacy work, especially around girls, sport, all that kind of stuff. What do you see as the biggest challenge for, particularly maybe, I'll just talk about girls for the moment, in continuing sport? Is it just the teen years? Like, what is the biggest challenge that pops up?
Yeah, it's such an important question. I think because we are seeing such a huge participation drop off, and it is unfortunately more dominated by young women. So that participation drop off happens around the age of 13 and 14. And I think there's so many things that contribute to it that, we're working on creating that awareness around. So, it could be simple things like uniforms. Girls start to get their periods during that period, during that time of life. And, to have access to, say they're playing cricket and, not having to wear white pants during that time in life would be, I think, a significant step forward. Having access to change rooms and, different opportunities for sport is wonderful. And that's certainly, coming along in leaps and bounds. But I think the other thing is, there's such pull on their time, their attention, social media, comparison, that intense pressure that steps up during that phase as well. It becomes so much about competition and achievement at that age, and specialization. And there's we know, 0.0% of kids will become an elite athlete. It's extraordinarily low how many people actually go on to achieve at the highest level in sport. But that's really not what sport's about.
Yeah.
Sport is about social connection. It's about resilience. It's about, the little things like goal setting and, persevering and all of those things. Teamwork, obviously, if you, work in the team environment. It's trusting your body, connecting with it, understanding it. There's so many wonderful things that sport can give us. And so, unfortunately, a big factor is certainly parental behavior on the sidelines. We're seeing a lot more of that as well. Parents wanting to live vicariously through their kids, unrequited dreams that they might have had for themselves being lived out through their children. So there's a lot of damage that is happening for kids in sport. But if we can educate parents, but also take down those barriers for kids and obstacles to continue to play sport, especially during that time of high school where everything gets so intense, whether it's socials and friendships or, academic performance, to have something to come back to like sport is just a great outlet for physical and mental health. And yeah, I'm incredibly passionate about it because I always say that swimming saved me. It was even though, there was a lot of desire to feel like I was of value because I was achieving something, it gave me that sense of purpose. I was so passionate about it. I always talk about swimming being my very first love of my life. And that is something that I'm grateful that I continue to experience today. And yeah, I just think sport is of so much value for kids that we just want to keep them playing for a lifetime, not just a short period of time.
Yeah, I love that so much. It really speaks to me about that belonging piece that sport can bring a belonging that,
connection.
You find belonging in other places, but sport and being part of something, working together, it's a really, really beautiful thing. It's a special thing. And I agree with you. It teaches kids about winning well, losing well, being a teammate, about trying hard, working hard, all those beautiful things that we have to experience in the world around disappointments. And yeah, it's such a beautiful forum. And I think, for me, my kids all played sport growing up, and my son, played a high level of soccer, and he was playing NPL for a while there. And I was horrified when I would go and watch, to the point where I actually didn't go and watch anymore. I could not handle the parents, and they're screaming at these kids and then at the ref, and I was just like, this is defeating the purpose of everything. And my son actually got to the point where he's like, this is not fun anymore. It is not
Yes.
fun. There is this pressure. It doesn't feel good. And I'm like, yeah, it's not great, because, I always come back to this, and I think I've heard you say this before. Where we want to stand as parents is, I just love watching you play. That's it.
Exactly.
It
Yeah.
does not matter whether you're winning or losing. I just love watching you play. And I have always tried to hold that with my kids, of just like, I just love watching you play. And you're exactly right. Moving your body, being part of something bigger, it is so good for our mental health, but it also teaches us some really beautiful things about being a human.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's funny because there's certainly the elite athlete in the back of my head all of the time, right? And I go, oh, how amazing would it be if my kids went to the Olympics or, achieved something?
Yeah.
And I obviously always have to check myself
Yeah.
because that's not the thing. And I know that that's not the thing.
Yeah.
So I'm really leaning hard now into the idea and the intentionality of creating a relationship with my kids that I will get to go and swim laps with them in the future. Like,
that's beautiful.
That makes me want to cry.
Yeah.
The idea that
Yeah.
I can do that with my kids in the future, that'll be like, I'll know that I've absolutely bloody nailed it if I can do that.
That is golden. I absolutely love that. I watch the equivalent of that of my son and my husband, who both love football, like soccer, play indoor soccer together. And
yes. Oh my God.
it was so beautiful, because my son Kai was fast, and Mike's like, I'm not fast, but I'm accurate, right? So just pass it to me. And but this beautiful camaraderie of them playing together, that's the joy, isn't it? That is the absolute joy of, and I love that that's that big reframe for you. We can hang out and do this thing together. That is so rich. It's so beautiful.
And also not wishing it away.
There's a dance, isn't it, between that? I'm looking forward for those things, and also, oh my goodness, can everyone please just make their own food?
Yes.
I hear you got a while to go yet, honey. I'm sorry.
No, it's still so long.
I would just love to hear as we finish up, and I'd love just where this conversation's gone, but from having Poppy as your first child to now having your fifth child, like what is your beautiful words of wisdom about parenting, life, all that kind of stuff, not just through the lens of mothering, but from that experience to where you are now? What do you want to share about that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I've been reflecting a lot on that in the last 7 months since having Archie. And I think the realization for me, when I first had Poppy, it was like, do you sleep train? Do you co-sleep? Is it, gentle parenting? Is it attachment theory? Is it, are you making organic food or feeding them pouches? Like, are you going to toddler sensory classes? Like, there's all these things that we think we should be doing to stimulate and cultivate and create these things. The thing that I just keep coming back to, and, this is through the experience and the lens of my childhood and the things that I think were missing there, is the only thing that's important is connection. Like, that is the only thing. And when you are connecting not only with the other person, but most importantly with yourself, when you're able to connect with yourself, then you're able to connect so deeply to other people and to your children. You're able to see them and their needs so much more effectively. And that's the thing. Like, that is the only thing. Like, yes, ultimately, we don't want them watching too much TV, and ideally we're making our own food, and yes, all blah, 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 blah. All of that is great. But really, if you are there with them, as you said, you're present with them and available to them, that is the most important thing and the hardest thing to do.
I could not agree with you more. I think that's the magic that I came to after many years of parenting, is it's about my presence with them. because they grow up, right? And whether you fed them organic food or not, or whether they
No.
watch too much Play School or not, it
Or
kind
whether
of
you've opened your cervix with like a flower or, had an elective cesarean.
That's exactly it. It all works out in the wash, right? And at
Yes.
the end of the day, it is so much about how we're turning up, us doing that work, and then that beautiful connection that we bring with them. I agree with you totally. And when we're in the thick of it, it feels big and it feels really
Totally.
important. And it's only in hindsight, isn't it? I mean, I tell a story about, with my first, I'm like, he's never going to have sugar and he's no TV and
Yeah.
just all the things. And by the time my third baby came along, I reckon she was laying on the floor. She was like 5 months of age. And my kids went over and shoved like a chocolate covered strawberry in her mouth. And I remember being like, oh, is she choking? Nah, she's fine then. Like,
She's fine. She'll be right.
just like,
No, totally. I know. I keep looking at all these things, and I remember having this moment where it's like you have to put your baby somewhere. Like there has to be like a cradle or a rocker or some sort of cushion, and I'm like, my babies go straight on the floor now.
Yeah.
Like there's not even like a blanket anymore. It's just like straight on the floor.
you're
You'll
right.
be right.
They're getting some good germs. I know Archie's going to be the most cruisy, adaptable little human.
Fingers crossed.
Like he's going to have had 4 big brothers and sisters to navigate, be wrangled with. He's like, yeah, cool. I know.
It's cool. I'll go with it. It's fine.
Yeah, so beautiful, so beautiful. All right, to finish off, Libby, have you got anything you would like people to know about what you've got going on, your podcasts, or what would you like people to know? Yes.
So this year, we are coming out with a podcast all about participation in sport. We are aligning with the Australian Sports Commission to create an 8-part series talking all about the Play Well strategy and how important sport is for all of those beautiful reasons that we spoke about earlier. So keep an eye out for that. If you want to follow Sportish on any podcast feed, that's where you will get that new series.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much for your time today. This has just felt like a beautiful, rich conversation for me. Everything you're saying is just making my heart beam because I think I relate. I feel like I've lived that. And just hearing you just talk, with such vulnerability, but also realness about your journey, especially around, what you've achieved in the world, but also what I imagine success is to you now, is that swimming with your kids. It's the enoughness, it's the being in the chaos and being okay. To me, from a world champion to actually knowing that enoughness in there is just such magic. So I just want to reflect back to you what an extraordinary human you are, Libby, and how lucky your kiddos are to have you as their mama. Like, what
you're going to make me cry. Thank you, Lael. That means the world to me. Thank you.
I love all that you stand for and all that you're doing and the beautiful work in the world. And, I really take away from our conversation those beautiful themes about coming home to ourselves and our worth and our enoughness is not caught up in the things we do or the way we look, but just about the fact that we're here, we're in a human body, and we've always been that way. We just have to remember it, don't we?
Yeah, exactly right. So beautiful.
Thank you to beautiful little Archie who's been snuggled on your chest all of this time.
He fell asleep. What a win.
What a little darling. Thanks so much for being here, Libby.
My pleasure. Thank you, Lael.
Oh my goodness, how much did I just love this chat with Libby. She is just such a beautiful human. Her openness, her vulnerability, that beautiful smile of hers. I was so touched by her take on achievement and performance, and also, how that now factors into how she's wanting to raise her children. I love that we really could touch on just how invisible sometimes motherhood is and what we often do to navigate that, what we feel like we need to control, what we need to get right. And what I loved about this episode is, as Libby says, with 5 little humans, you have to let go of control. You have to learn how to surrender. And I just love the incredible shift that Libby's had from having to be so disciplined and dedicated to win gold medals to then come back to this beautiful space in her life where she is raising children, which is often not acknowledged or not seen in our culture, in our world, as something that is, it's not held up to I think the place that it should be. And just how tricky that can be when we're used to achieving and our worth is all about achievement, to that
that inner knowing when we are raising little humans and actually the important job that we're doing. I also really, really love, Libby's advocacy work around in sport for girls, what that can look like, and just that beautiful message of I just love watching you play. Not making it about the performance and the achievement and the pressure, but just about the joy of moving, of playing, of team sports, of getting out there and having a go. I think that's what we need a lot more of in our world. So I hope this interview has connected somewhere within you, particularly if you're in the thick of motherhood chaos, or maybe you're a really high achiever just learning to be in the world, or maybe you're struggling with your enoughness. I think there's something really beautiful in this episode for you. Thanks for sharing this time with me. You can find my book, Own Your Story, at bookshops or listen to the audiobook on Audible. I even read it myself. You can stay connected with Humans Being on Instagram, Facebook or YouTube. We love to hear from you, so please leave a comment, question or contemplation. And visit my website, laelstone.com.au, where you'll find heaps of great resources and courses for you to explore. This podcast is produced by Nigel Carboon, recorded by the crew at We Make Online Videos, and our original music is created by Josh Reed. Humans Being is produced on the lands of the Bunurong and Wadawurrung people. We pay respect to their unique and diverse cultures and to elders past, present and future. Until next time, stay connected and don't forget to be human.